Yo, what is happening, people? Thank you for joining this session. In this one, you are going to learn all about agile ceremonies, how to run them top to bottom. And that's what we're going to get into. So just before we jump into that, I want to share my screen, and I also want to share with you just who I am and where I come from. So you can check me out. You go on my website, you can have a little click around. This will be updated over the next month or so. This is our YouTube channel, great place to come for loads of content. All of our podcasts are on here with business owners, startup, entrepreneurs, people that have got success and that want to share it. And down here, you'll see a bunch of other videos about our partnership program and also agile videos, remote team tips, leadership tips, self-care tips, everything all in one place for you. You'll also find our rapid growth partnership available to you here. That will be in the description of this video, and also our agile transformation book. If you want to make agile transformation happen, you need coaches that are going to grease the wheels of the organization, get people to believe, to see, to be able to actually do agile. And no further ado, there's one way of doing agile. So we're talking about the events or the ceremonies that happen, how to run them, and what you do if you're the person in the team. As we know, this is a high level process. We went through this in the last video, so you should be able to go back to the last video and see where we've described this process. It's video 1 where we talk about what is agile, where does it come from. Video 2, we've talked about the metrics and the data that you can use as a team. This is a third video. It's going into the events, the ceremonies, and how you can run them top to bottom. So we're going to start with this process here. How do you go from the backlog to the sprint planning? So sprint planning is what we want to focus on first. However, like I just mentioned, having a backlog, a product backlog is so important, is necessary, vital. Otherwise, you can't build a sprint backlog, right? You can't focus on what's happening next if you don't know what the big vision is and where you're heading. So the first thing we need to talk about, how do you build a product backlog? It's very simple. First of all, you need to look at your data from your business on who your customers are, and try and get down to higher level personas that allow you to see who they are, their main problems, their needs, their goals, you know, a bit about them, the demographics, how they behave, and any other criteria that you want to capture, but you need personas at a high level. Then you need to figure out, how does your company, how does your business flow the value to them? What's the first thing, the second thing, the third thing, the fourth thing that they do? And ideally, you'll come up with a high level journey here, and then the incremental steps that they need to go through in order to achieve that. From there, you can really start to say, okay, if we know that that green level across is our customer journey, we then go into an as is customer journey map. So if you know that that green level across is the customer journey, we want to start thinking about what's their thinking at each step, what's their emotions at each step. Is it going high emotion, low emotion? What's their actual journey? And across that journey, what do they see from us? What's on the front end? What's visible? What's on the back end? What's not visible, but is the work that happens to make the front end possible? You need to do that for the as is. You need to figure out what's happening now. Then you can pause and you can say, right, okay, so for this product, what's our big vision for the future? The vision, the target group, the needs of that audience, the product, what's your ideas of the actual product that you're going to build, and what the business goals is going to help achieve. From here, you'll actually be able to go back to a customer journey and say, right, do we want these green stickies to be the thing in the future? If we do, fantastic. Let's not change them, but let's think about the thinking we want our customers to have and the emotions we want them to have as they step through this end-to-end journey. Then you can start to think about, well, what do they see in the front end and what happens in the back end for all that front end to be possible? And you can start to come up with new features, new ways of doing things, and you plot all them in on a to-be customer journey. Then, quite simply, you look at your vertical line. So you'll say, for this step on the customer journey, we need to build this front end, and that back end needs to go with that front end. Fantastic. That's one user story. Then the next one, then the next one, and the whole way through, they're all your user stories now mapped out top to bottom. Perfect. You know how you're going to add value to their journey every step of the way, and you know that each step is doesn't rely on the other one to happen, right? You know that you can just do them independently of each other. So from here, you have a product backlog, and you can then start to do a sprint planning session. In a sprint planning session, first things you want to do is that really just remind the team what the vision is. Shouldn't take long. They should all know it already. It should just be a quick check-in. Then you should be doing a quick check-in of the to-be customer journey and just marking where you are so far, what's been delivered, and what hasn't. From here, you should be able to review that big product backlog, that big list of the journey that you're going to create, and you should be able to estimate it with the team. The team should be able to say what is of high effort. The product owner should be able to help understand what is the value associated, and between the two, you should be able to mark out what items are going to go next. The items that you want to go next, or the optimal sequence, should be about the customer value it delivers at the least amount of development effort, right? Lowest effort, highest value, perfect. We want to consider the optimal release cycle of these features too, right? So you might say that we do something of high value and high effort first, purely because that's just the best thing that should be received by the customer in the way we're going to release our product. Then, once everyone is aware of what's in the backlog and what they're going to focus on, or what's at the top, what the priority is, then you have a look at your performance of the last sprint. So you look at your burn down, and in this example, this is a burn up. So you look at, so far with all your sprints, how many points have you delivered, or number of items have you delivered? And therefore, are you on track, off track? How's it looking? Again, if you go into the second video, we get more into the detail of different reports, different ways of looking at team performance, and different ways of using those charts to equal big levers of improvement. So from here, the team know what's coming up next. They know their capacity, and it's for them to take the item at the top. As a development team, start to think about, okay, how are we going to make this? What are all the bits that we need to come together? And it's their time now to call out any dependencies, any support, and any collaboration that's required within the team and outside the team. From here, you're good to start your sprint. Every day, says the textbook, and is good practice, at least once a day. You can actually do more of these if you think they're helpful. Check in, and first of all, it's called a daily scrum or a daily stand-up. And what you want to do is, first of all, get all the team members together. Make sure you're looking at the work, whether it's in a digital board or physical board. Make sure they're looking at the work. Everyone is there for the stand-up, ready to go. Make sure they're attentive and present and looking at the work. In the sprint planning session, you will agree some kind of focus for the sprint. And it might be about the features you're creating, or it might be about just how you're going to behave as a team. Either way, if you do have a sprint goal, check in with it and just make sure that you are aware. What have you done so far in your burn down chart towards achieving the total backlog, right? As you just have a quick check, where are we so far? Then, one item at a time, someone can step forward and say, I'm working on this item right now. It was done yesterday, so I'll move it to done, and I'll mark the points down on here. So if we've moved it, we'll move it down, bang, I've moved it here, yeah? Then you say, right, my focus for today is to finish this item that's in progress, and the support that I need is I need the architect from another team, or I need approval from another team that owns a part of the infrastructure, or I don't have the skills to complete this part. I thought I did, but I'm finding it challenging. I need someone with SME experience, or any version of that, or anything else. But it's the time to call out what support you need. Pretty much, once you've gone through every work item that you plan for your sprint, it's done, right? And then you move on to any other business, any other important thing or factor that people want to let each other know about. Because you focused on the work and not the people, the main thing here is that the work itself will be at its most optimal state of communication, of progress, of value add. And at the end of the day, we're all in a business working on adding value to that business. So we need to make sure that we're focused on the work and the value that it adds. At the end of the cycle, you'll do a review of what you've done. And quite simply, you start that session by saying, guys, just remember, this is our vision. This is our journey. This is where we are so far. And this is how far we've got on our sprint goal. If we go back to that burn down chart, we'd have a look at that burn down chart and say, this is where we are so far. If you have a burn up chart, you'd also say, and overall for our total product backlog scope, this is where we are and this is where we need to get to. Then you just look at the done column, and you would tell one item at a time, and that person who's completed that item would step forward and say, this is what I've done. Here's a demonstration. If it's software, brilliant. You can press play. You can do a user story. You can do a test case. Sorry, you can actually press, if it's automation software, you can like press play and watch it actually run through a scenario. Or if it's a different piece of work, if it's not software development, just find a way to demonstrate what you've done and give it a voiceover. This review should be done in front of your stakeholders that this real work is for. It could be the product owner who's representing the customer, or it could actually be the end customer. Either way, that stakeholder needs to accept or not accept that work. When they do so, two things will happen. One of two things will happen. If they accept it, it will then be going through the release cycle. Hopefully the teams can just press release and it will go. Or maybe there's an internal cycle they need to go through. The other option is that they don't accept it, in which case it goes to the backlog with the feedback. What you do afterwards, no matter what decision was made, you then ask for any more items on the minds of the audience that are in the sprint review, which includes the team and the stakeholders, for items to add onto the product backlog. At the end of that session, once you've gone through every work in item that's in the done column, you then look at the total product backlog column and you start to just make any necessary adjustments. Now if you've got your stakeholders with you in that meeting, it's a great opportunity to all at once start to have a shared discussion around what is most important, what holds the most value, what's the least effort, blah, blah, blah. It also gets a lot of buy-in and engagement and people excited for what you're building. Sprint retrospective would happen after that, right? And this is amazing. This is what makes good teams great, as it says on the meme. Again, these sessions are always best by starting just with a quick recap, right? This is the vision. This is the journey that we're creating. And then we want to really look at the team performance, right? It's just about improving the team and how we work now. So how do we work? Well, this data, our burn up chart and our burn down chart, they'll give us real good secrets and insights into how the team is working, because it pins down and shows you real objective data on the actual work and whether that work has been moved to done or whether it's still in flight. Therefore, you'll start to understand if there's been delays, and it's just a very good way of objectively looking at your performance. From here, you want to use a retro tool, and you could use this one, use many other ones you could use. They're never ending. It's as much as they're as endless as your human creativity, right? Which is endless. So you can use any tool that you want that's right for the conversation. What's important though, is that you don't attack all of these at once. All of these different sections, do not do that. Instead, spend 2 minutes in silence, writing down 1 point per sticky note for each segment. So start on one segment, give everyone 2 minutes in silence, give them some sticky notes, get them to write down 1 point per sticky note, and then get them to stick them all up. As one person, after the end of the 2 minutes, the team member will step forward and start saying, this is an item I've got, and they'll put the sticky note on the board. They can do that physically or digitally. Once they put it on the board, you want them to voice over what that sticky note means. And then anyone else who's got related points, put their stickies around the same sticky point. The same person will then go to their next point. Everyone else will group them up, and vice versa. And we start to have a shared discussion around the things, the ideas that we have in common. We give each of those groupings a title. Then we move on to the next section. So if we just done that section for stop, we might then move into another section of less. What would we need to do less of, for example? And so then again, everyone would spend their time in 2 minutes in silence and go through exactly the same process. 2 minutes in silence, write your ideas down, then one person at a time, step forward, one sticky at a time, and just say, this is my point. Anyone got anything similar? Great. What would we call that? Okay, I had another point, this one. Anyone got anything similar? Great. And at this stage, it's okay to start grouping them up across boundaries, right? The retro tool is just a tool. It's just to help you have a good conversation about the different facets that matter for your team. So once you've used that tool to get the conversation out there, what's most important is the groupings. At the end of going through each of the sections that you decide to go through with your tool, you then give every team member 3 votes. Their 3 votes can go in any direction. And once they put them either all in the same place or across 3 different items, whatever they choose to do, you will know what grouping now has the biggest lever for improvement as per what the team believe and the team feel. So go with that pool. All you have to do once you've got one grouping that's got all the ticks on it, that's got all the initials on it, that's been voted for by mostly by the team, the highest votes, you then just have a shared discussion, right? What would this outcome look like? How can we make sure that outcome happens? when will we review the performance of this item? As in, when will we review how this improvement item has actually impacted our performance? Because it should do. And then from there, retro is done. Optionally, you can bring that retro improvement item into your sprint planning session and make sure that you talk about it every day for the rest of that sprint. I say that's optional because it's up to whatever works most for teams of people. So all that's left now to say is, if you need any Agile help, if you need any Agile support, get on to me. I love this Agile stuff. I've got many, many years of experience doing this at scale. Small teams, big teams, software, education, oil and gas, banking, fintechs, all sorts of things. Teams of 30, teams of 70, teams of 150, executive leaders, directors, their direct reports, there's ordinary low down team members, right? All of it in various different contexts and different states of agility. So get on to me if you've got any Agile problems. Of course, hit the subscribe button, check out the links below, and I'll see you next time. Thank you. See ya.